good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I see some people coming in from different time zones. So thank you for attending to our webinar today, High Performing Leaders' Biggest Secret. If you haven't yet, feel free to go grab your cup of coffee because we're going to have a lot of content today. And we hope that you bring back with some meaningful insights for your own line of work. So today we have Gilbert Martin, who has led highest performing team at Symantec, Citrix, ForcePoint. He will be sharing with us how to move away from manual and consuming reporting to more meaningful insights and full visibility into your organization tools, KPI, and performance. So Gilbert, take it away.
Hey guys, good evening, good morning, wherever you guys are at, and thanks for having me. So, DevOps is a passion of mine, right? And watching TV is also a passion of mine. But my wife tells me that I kill brain cells watching TV. Anyways, that's a different story for another day. So it's 2022, and I joined this Fortune 50 company, right, as their VP of Cloud Operations, and I'm entering one company. And it turns out I'm joining 4 companies. What they didn't tell me is that they acquired 3 companies in the last 6 months. So now I have 4 DevOps teams within my organization. As passionate as I am with security, I wanted to start off with security. In doing this journey in DevOps, but in addition to that, they told me, hey, you're also going to be responsible for data centers. So I told myself, I don't know if I want to do data centers. I think those are like, what are those data centers? Are those dinosaurs or what are those? So I had a conversation with my wife, and my wife's like pretended to care. And she's like, you'll figure it out. You'll fix the data center thing. And then she takes off the target. Right. So like I said, my first objective is, hey, I need to really gain visibility into this DevOps journey into the performance of the journey. So my goal was to look at, looking at the metrics to have an informed and strategic decision on these 4 teams. So I started working on this, and I started trying to understand the tools, trying to understand the gaps, the process, the mindset, right? And I got really passionate about this problem, right? And if you've worked in DevOps, and you know that there are about 3 challenges you see in DevOps, which could be the set of tools that you're using to deploy the software in a more modern or a traditional tool set. Number 2 could be the organization itself maybe doesn't have unified insights across the supply chain. You could have pockets of insights with different tools, so you always have to context switch. And then finally, security insights, which is always an afterthought or is siloed in different areas. So even if you wanted to do one thing of those 3 that I mentioned, you're talking about a couple of engineers, 180 hours, 19 cups of coffee, and probably a lot of frustration, right? So as I dig in deeper into this problem, right, I talk to my peers, I talk to everybody around this, and they haven't figured out how to do unified insights. So, let me show you really quick some of these companies that I was talking to you about. So these are some of the companies that I was talking to you about, right? So when speaking to them, sorry, excuse me. So when speaking to them, right, they're all companies that are doing different things. And however, they are doing one common thing. And that's kind of what we'll talk about here, right? So, the challenge is not getting teams to use a set of toolchain, right? And it's not, you don't want teams to use one toolchain, and you don't want teams to have one location, because if you force people to use one set of tools, and then you start having everybody uses one platform so you can get all the unified insights, that won't work, right? That, per experience, I've done this in the past, and it's just, it created a riot and created a lot of frustration, and people really got upset at you. So I didn't do that, right? So let's talk a little bit about the opportunity here, right? On DevOps. So as I was working with some of these companies that you saw earlier, they're really big companies, but they figured out one thing. They figured out how to work with one platform and one tool. So you know, as I was doing work for the Fortune 50 company, I really enjoyed doing the work. But as I kept looking and I looked at how passionate I was with this area in DevOps, I didn't want to work with dinosaurs, so I joined Opsera. Right? In Opsera, now I get to teach people about how to take their island of tools and their siloed siloed data of insights and then put them all together into a unified way. So today we'll talk about 3 different things, right? Let's go to the next slide here. So today we'll learn about the framework that follows, a transition from a manual or an island of tools to a unified insights. We'll talk about how to put your framework into practice so that you're, moving in the right direction and you don't create chaos. And number 3, we'll talk about the most common dashboards that KPIs that executives and managers, track for moving what we call velocity and volume. So let's talk about the number 1, right? So for number 1, so the most common KPIs that we want to talk about is how do you want to measure these things? Think about the strategic priorities you already have, the goals that you're already trying to achieve. You probably had just begun your fiscal year this year and setting up your OKRs and discussing this with your manager, your CIO. So what is it that you want to achieve with these KPIs? Where do you want to see the movement forward? Number 2 is you want to assess your tools, right? Your team is already using some of these tools. Like I mentioned earlier, you probably have islands of tools in different organizations, and you really want to understand the tools and what are the tools that are bottlenecking you? What are the tools that are causing complete chaos? What are the tools that your 4 teams are using that you can benchmark and get metrics against? So you want to prioritize those tools, right? And then 3rd, we want to talk about auditing your pipelines, right? In your teams. What are your teams using in the pipelines? How are you tagging those pipelines, right? I like to, use this as like a analogy where you're looking at your bank account and, let's say your wife goes to Target and she spends money on, at Target, and you want to see how much she spends on Target, but you don't know where it came from. So you want to understand like where the pipelines are coming from, how are you tagging them so you can collect that data. So those are important tips, right? So when I talked earlier about these companies, right? These companies were using, oops. So I forgot to hit the slides here, guys. So my apologies. But again, number 2 is assess your tools. Number 3 is to review the pipelines. So earlier we talked about the companies that were using one thing. They were doing one thing, and they were doing one thing different, but they were doing all the same thing, which is Opsera, right? And Opsera gives you the platform to rule them all. So let me show you a little bit about what Opsera platform looks like and what it can do for you and how you can see these metrics and islands of tools that differ from the rest of the stuff out there, right? And what I'm going to show you today is an typical executive dashboards that you get at your fingerprints, where you really don't get this data right away, right? It takes months, if not years, to be able to collect the data, get the data accuracy. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that now. Okay, so today, what you're seeing here is you're seeing what we call the industry Dora metrics. So Dora metrics is, part of what the industry knows. How do you collect all your data from multiple tools like Jira, like your CI/CD tool? How do you deploy? How fast you deploy? What is your change failure rate? What is your lead time? What is your mean time to repair, etc. So we'll go through each of these separately. So in this executive dashboard, what I'm showing you here is pretty much your lead time. So this is your Jira. How fast do you complete your tickets? How fast was an issue created or completed or deployed? How many bugs did you have in that story, etc. So this will give you the plot of that data. Right now, when you're pulling in this data, right, you typically have to go to Jira to pull the data, and there is no one unified location to look at. In deployment frequency, right, the deployment frequency, you can have multiple types of CI or CD tools. You can have something like a Spinnaker, you can have something like Jenkins, you can have something like an Argo CD, but you really want to understand your deployment frequency when it comes to build statistics, the build frequency, so how often you're doing it. And this dashboard is overall across your organizations. This is not just one organization, but I'll show you a filter where you can easily filter to a specific organization that shows you that data. So when you click into one of these, it will open up the statistics of a pipeline. So if you wanted to understand what your total build time was, and you wanted to improve on your total build time, then you could look at the amount of hours it takes to deploy, or you can also look at the time it takes to resolve a build time. So this starts to give you helpful insights into your software supply chain. Now, if you look at these reports and analytics, you can see that I have a GitHub here. I have a Maven JFrog build. I also have an SFDX, which is a Salesforce capability, but I'm not going to go deep into that. But I mean, you can already see that I already have two types of technologies in here. Now with Jira, that would be a third technology. But what I'm saying is you have now the three different types of technologies, bringing it all together in this report. They're actionable. If I were to click on this link, it takes me directly to the pipeline and shows me, what that pipeline did, how it executed, etc., without me having to context switch. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going. One of the things that I also wanted to know as part of that Fortune 50 company was, what was our mean time to repair or to resolve, right? So this gives me kind of your incidents, your resolved incidents, your mean time. So this could be your ServiceNow. Other companies use Jira. So this also is now a separate tool that you would have to integrate. You'd have to correlate, contextualize the data. You would have to, communicate with a different organization. You would either have to go to ServiceNow and look at that data in ServiceNow and then try to either correlate and contextualize it here in your software supply chain. So we bring it all together for you, and you look at the mean time average across your organization. So those 4 organizations that I looked at, I have it now here in one location. Again, your mean time to acknowledge, again, it's part of your incident response, or your mean time, your change failure rate. So this is your acknowledgement of how we're going to look into the incidents and how fast you acknowledge those incidents. So you want to make sure you acknowledge and you resolve the incidents to provide the better experience to your customers when delivering software, right? And then overall here, we also see a little bit of the security, right? I was going to save this for a later time, but security is an important part of your software supply chain, right? We talked about how it's always an afterthought. So quality and security is important to understand how you're doing as an organization, and then where can I improve or start improving. So if you look here, we also see that we have SonarQube in this example with a little bit of telling us about quality and security. So it looks like I'm an E here, and it tells me, hey, why is this an E? So it looks like I'm doing a sonar scan with the new spin of GitLab. But if you also look at all these projects, I have Bitbucket, I have GitLab, I have Maven, right? So this is telling me, hey, this project or this capability is giving me an E. And then you can dig in deeper. You can look at how many blockers, at how many vulnerabilities you have, all from one dashboard, right? And lastly, I'll show you a Git custodian metric, which is a built-in it's a built-in source code secrets manager into the platform. Okay, so it will show you the number of repositories scanned as an organization, and it'll show you the clean repositories versus number of issues you have. So that's another metric that you can start looking from a source code perspective, and it'll adopt it into your shift left strategy. So you can start prioritizing what secrets you may be able to like look at first. And then finally, another popular tool we see in the industry is Coverity. So Coverity is another one of those where we see also the data all together from a specific pipeline, and we see it in hey, well, what's the problem? So in this case, you can see that you have one vulnerability in that test coverage. So this is kind of overall dashboard. Now, if I wanted to look at a specific team, I can come look here, and I could say, hey, I'm going to go look at Surya's organization, and I want to see how his organization's doing. So then the whole pipeline is going to refresh. Oh, great. And the demo gods are not with me today, but if you could imagine that the data was here, and now I'd be able to refresh the data. Let me just try one more thing here, see if I can get this to populate. Yep, so I'm probably missing a setting here, but if you would, the data would also show that Surya's org is doing, is giving you the lead time, the deployment frequency, and the applications. But that's not all, right? So these are great for Dora metrics, but if I really wanted to look at these metrics, we have over 150 KPIs that give you everything from planning all the way to deployment, right? So think of this marketplace, like if you have a tool, one of the most popular tools out there, we can connect them all here, and then you'll be able to look at those metrics and create that dashboard to show you how that, how your deployment and how fast you're deploying to production, so that you can gain that experience with the customers. All right, so coming back to the slideshow here. So if any of this is resonating with you, then we're gonna offer a free 1-hour workshop with our DevOps advisors, right? So we'll help you with an assessment on how to solve the unified insights, your challenges you have. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been at multiple companies. They all have islands of tools, but you don't want to enforce one standard, right? You want to more democratize the DevOps toolchain. Second, we want to review. We'll help you review your current strategy around KPIs and make some suggestions on any gaps. And then we'll create a plan with our advisors, with our DevOps advisors, that you could, you'll be able to pull those unified insights and get that visibility across your, in this case, my 4 organizations or your organizations. All right. So we already covered the security posture. I'm going to go ahead and skip this. I do have one more thing I do want to show you. Or before that, any questions or answers I can help? Any questions I can help answer? My bad. All right. If there's no questions or answers, I do have one more thing I'd like to show you. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet where we helped a Fortune 500 company, and we gave them productivity time back to their engineering teams and DevOps teams. So this This is a company that took all their, engineers and said, hey, I need you to stop working, fill out the spreadsheet, and you need to fill it and get it done by the end of the week, because we want to understand what you're doing and we want to figure out where we can improve. So we took the spreadsheet and we helped this Fortune 500 do all of the planning, the source code, the code analysis, effectively look at their entire unified insights with data. So they no longer have to, go get that engineer to fill out that spreadsheet, and because it's like the last thing that engineer wants to do on Friday, right? Is go fill out a spreadsheet and give all the data points to the manager so the managers can go discuss and see where they can improve. So we took that Fortune 500 company and we converted into the data here in the dashboards. So I want to end with letting you guys know that unified insights and getting metrics across the platform isn't just about pointing out the challenges or pointing out that you have to improve in certain areas. It's also about celebrating the wins. Those dashboards are not there to shame you. Those dashboards are there to help improve the customer experience and help deliver software faster, right? So it's about fostering a culture of, hey, we need to win together. We need to improve, make improvements every year. But you make those KPIs and those goals, but again, not to shame people, but to create that culture of let's win together. Let's help accelerate and deploy software faster so we can have an end result of happier customers. So thank you for attending the webinar. I really appreciate your time and love to answer any questions if there are any. All right, guys. Well, thank you for attending on on a Wednesday afternoon. We're at the middle of the week, so I hope you guys have the good rest of the week, and we got 2 more days for the weekend. So thank you guys. Have a great day.